I stirred my latte slowly, watching the foam swirl into delicate patterns while Mom scrolled through her phone with the satisfied expression of someone who'd just accomplished something important. Across the table, my sister Vanessa was doing her usual Sunday brunch performance. Perfectly styled hair, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, recounting her latest real estate triumph. So the Riverside property closed at $2.8 million, Vanessa said, cutting her avocado toast into precise pieces. The buyers were desperate. Multiple offers, but I convinced them mine was the only serious one. Commission alone was enough to cover my trip to the Maldives next month. That's wonderful, honey, Mom said, barely looking up from her phone. You've always had such a head for business. It's about knowing value, Vanessa continued. Understanding what properties are really worth versus what people think they're worth. That's the difference between a good agent and a great one. I took another sip of my latte, letting the conversation wash over me. Mom suddenly looked up, a bright smile crossing her face. Oh, speaking of properties, Emma, I have good news. I listed your apartment this morning. I set down my cup carefully. You did what? Listed your apartment, Mom repeated as if this were the most natural thing in the world. I've been talking to Vanessa about it for weeks. That building you're in? It's going downhill. The management is terrible, the other tenants are questionable, and honestly the whole neighborhood is deteriorating. It's time you moved somewhere better. Vanessa nodded enthusiastically. I told Mom I'd find you something nice. There's a cute one-bedroom in Riverside, much better area, more professional residents. It's only $1,800 a month, which I know is a stretch on your salary, but... Wait, I interrupted. Mom, you listed my apartment? How? Mom waved her hand dismissively. I still have your spare key from when you had the flu last year. I took some photos yesterday while you were at work. The place needs updating. That kitchen is from the 90s. But I got some decent shots. Already have 3 inquiries. You went into my apartment without asking? Don't be dramatic, Emma. I'm your mother. Besides, I'm doing you a favor. That building is a dump. You deserve better. Mom turned her phone to show me a rental listing. There was my living room, my furniture, my view of the city skyline. I stared at the listing, then back at Mom. You can't just list someone else's apartment. I can when that someone is my daughter who clearly doesn't have the motivation to improve her own situation, Mom said firmly. Emma, you've been in that place for 6 years. 6 years in a mediocre building in a declining neighborhood, paying rent to some absentee landlord who probably doesn't even live in the state. Vanessa jumped in. Mom's right. You're throwing money away on rent when you could be building equity. That's what I keep telling you. At 32 you should own property, not rent. But if you insist on renting, at least rent somewhere decent. The building is fine, I said quietly. Fine. Mom laughed. Emma, the elevator breaks down every other week. The lobby looks like it hasn't been updated since 1985. Half the units are empty because the building has such a bad reputation. Fine is not the standard you should be accepting. The location is terrible too, Vanessa added. That neighborhood used to be nice 20 years ago, but now? Crime rates are up, property values are stagnant. Emma, as your sister and as a real estate professional, I'm telling you, get out of there. I returned to my latte, saying nothing. Mom sighed dramatically. This is exactly your problem, Emma. No ambition, no drive to improve your circumstances. You work at that little nonprofit making what, $40,000 a year? You live in a deteriorating building in a bad neighborhood. You drive a car that's older than some of my clients' children. When are you going to want more for yourself? I'm content where I am, I said. Content, Vanessa repeated, making it sound like a disease. Emma, content is what people say when they've given up. I'm not content. I'm thriving. I drive a BMW, I live in a luxury condo in the best part of the city. I travel internationally 4 times a year. That's not content, that's success. Your sister works hard for that success, Mom added. 80-hour weeks sometimes, always networking, always pushing. That's what it takes, Emma. You work your 9 to 5 at that little charity office, then go home to your rundown apartment and do, what? Watch Netflix. I keep busy, I said. Doing what? Mom challenged. You're not in a relationship, you don't go out much, you don't travel. What are you doing with your life? Before I could respond, Vanessa's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and rolled her eyes. Ugh, it's probably the Morrison deal. I need to take this. She stood up, walking a few steps away. Hello, yes, I've been waiting for your call about the counteroffer. Mom turned her full attention back to me. Emma, I'm serious about this. You need to move. I've already scheduled showings for your apartment next weekend. 3 different potential tenants. You can't show my apartment to strangers. I can and I will, Mom said firmly. Someone needs to push you out of that comfort zone. Once you have committed tenants ready to move in, you'll have no choice but to find somewhere better. Sometimes tough love is necessary. Mom, this is not your decision to make. You're my daughter. Your well-being is absolutely my decision. Mom leaned forward. Do you know what it's like telling my friends that my daughter lives in that building? In that neighborhood? They look at me with pity, Emma. Pity. Because their daughters are lawyers and doctors and executives, living in beautiful homes, and mine is working at a nonprofit and renting in a slum. It's not a slum. It's close enough, Mom snapped. The building is half empty. The management is incompetent. The neighborhood is in decline. You can defend it all you want, but facts are facts. Vanessa returned, sliding back into her seat. Crisis averted. The buyers accepted my counteroffer. That's another $60,000 in commission. He picked up her mimosa. What did I miss? I was just explaining to Emma why she needs to move, Mom said. Oh, absolutely, Vanessa agreed. Emma, I've been in real estate for 8 years. I know properties. That building you're in? It's a disaster waiting to happen. Structural issues, management problems, bad tenant mix. You need to get out before something serious happens. What do you know about the building's structure? I asked. I know it's old, poorly maintained, and the owner clearly doesn't care, Vanessa said. Absentee landlords are the worst. They collect rent and do nothing to maintain or improve the property. It's irresponsible. You've met the owner? I asked. Don't need to, Vanessa said confidently. The state of that building tells me everything. No owner who cares would let a property deteriorate like that. Probably some investment group that bought it decades ago and forgot about it. Mom nodded. Exactly. Which is why I'm taking action. Emma, I've hired a moving company for the first weekend of next month. Vanessa found you that nice place in Riverside. We're making this happen. Without asking me? Because if I ask, you'll say no, Mom said. You'll come up with excuses about why that horrible apartment is fine, and why you don't need to move. So I'm not asking. I'm telling you. This is happening. I set down my latte and pulled out my phone. Excuse me, I need to make a call. To who? Mom asked. Work, I said simply, standing up and walking toward the restaurant's entrance. Behind me, I heard Vanessa say, she's probably calling that nonprofit to take on extra hours. Emma would rather work for pennies than accept help improving her life. I stepped outside into the cool morning air and dialed Thomas Green, the property manager for my building. He answered on the second ring. Miss Chin, good morning. What can I do for you? Thomas, have you received any calls about a rental listing for the penthouse? There was a pause. As a matter of fact, yes. About an hour ago. A woman claiming to have access to your unit called to schedule viewings. She said she's listing it for rent. I told her that wasn't possible since you own the unit, and the entire building, but she insisted she had the right to list it. She became quite agitated when I tried to explain. I was actually about to call you. What's her number? She called from. He rattled off Mom's cell number. That's my mother. Another pause, longer this time. Your mother is trying to rent out your penthouse. Apparently. She doesn't know I own the building. Ah. Thomas's voice carried a mixture of amusement and concern. Miss Chin, what would you like me to do? Call her back. Ask her why she's listing the owner's property. With pleasure. Should I mention you're the owner? Not yet. Just see how she responds. Consider it done. I ended the call and returned to the table. Mom and Vanessa were deep in discussion about rental rates and neighborhood demographics. At least $1,800, possibly $2,000 depending on the tenant's credit, Vanessa was saying. The unit itself is decent even if the building is terrible. Someone will take it. I slid back into my seat. So you've scheduled viewings? Next Saturday, Mom confirmed. 2 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. Vanessa will handle them professionally. She's got a good eye for quality tenants. I'll screen them carefully, Vanessa assured me. Make sure whoever takes over your lease is responsible. Though honestly, Emma, anyone would be an improvement over you wasting space in a penthouse unit. I blinked. Wasting space. You live alone in a 2-bedroom, Vanessa said. That's inefficient. A family could use that space. Or a professional couple. You don't need 2 bedrooms. The 2nd bedroom is my office. You work at a non-profit, Mom said. What kind of work could you possibly need a home office for? Organizing charity bake sales. Before I could respond, Mom's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and frowned. Unknown number. Probably spam. She let it ring through to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Persistent spam, Vanessa commented. Mom answered with an irritated, hello? I watched her face carefully as she listened. Yes, this is she. What? No, I have every right to list that apartment. I'm the tenant's mother, and what do you mean I can't list it? Mom's voice was rising. Young man, I don't think you understand. My daughter has been renting there for 6 years. I have her spare key and her permission. She fell silent, listening. Her face went from annoyed to confused to pale. That can't be right. There must be some mistake. The owner is. You're saying the owner lives in the building? Which unit? Another pause. Mom's eyes widened. The penthouse? That's my daughter's. What do you mean she is the owner? That's impossible. Emma works at a non-profit. She makes barely enough to. No, she doesn't own, you're certain? Vanessa was watching Mom with growing concern. Mom? What's wrong? Mom held up one finger, still listening to the phone. I see. And the entire building? All 48 units? For how long? 6 years. But she never. I don't understand. I sipped my latte calmly. Yes, I apologize for the confusion. No, I won't be scheduling any viewings. Yes, I understand. Thank you for clarifying. Mom lowered the phone slowly, staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. What was that about? Vanessa demanded. Mom's voice came out barely above a whisper. That was the property manager. He says Emma owns the building. The table went silent. Vanessa laughed. That's ridiculous. Emma barely makes $40,000 a year. How could she possibly own a 48-unit building in the city? That's what I said, Mom agreed, but her eyes stayed fixed on me. Emma? What is he talking about? I set down my lot. I own the building. You own. Vanessa shook her head. Well, that's not possible. Do you have any idea what a building like that is worth? Even in that declining neighborhood, you're talking millions. 7.3 million, I said quietly. That's what I paid for it 6 years ago. Current valuation is approximately 11.2 million based on recent comparable sales in the area. Mom's hand was pressed to her chest. You paid $7 million for a building? 7.3, I corrected. I got a good deal. The previous owner was retiring and wanted a quick, clean sale. I paid cash. Vanessa was shaking her head repeatedly. You paid cash. $7.3 million. Gosh. Emma, where would you even get that kind of money? I worked for it. At a non-profit? Mom's voice was shrill now. Emma, non-profits don't pay $7 million salaries. No, I agreed. But I don't work at a non-profit. The silence that followed was absolute. Both Mom and Vanessa stared at me like I'd started speaking a foreign language. Finally, Vanessa found her voice. What do you mean you don't work at a non-profit? You said you work at that charity office downtown. No, I corrected gently. You said I work at a little non-profit making $40,000 a year. I never confirmed that. I said I work in the non-profit sector. There's a difference. Semantics, Mom snapped. If you don't work at a non-profit, where do you work? I run one, I said simply. I'm the founder and CEO of the Chin Foundation. We manage endowments and grant distributions for educational initiatives across the state. We oversee approximately $200 million in assets. Vanessa's mouth had fallen open. You run $200 million. The foundation itself is valued at $200 million, I clarified. My personal net worth is separate. Though obviously there's some overlap in terms of investment strategies and... Your personal net worth, Mom interrupted. Emma, what is your personal net worth? I paused, calculating mentally. As of last quarter's valuations, including real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and liquid assets, approximately 18 million. Though it fluctuates with the market. The color had completely drained from Mom's face. $18 million. Approximately, I repeated. Vanessa was scrolling frantically through her phone. Chin Foundation. Oh my God. Emma, there are articles about you. Forbes, Business Journal, Philanthropy Today. They're calling you one of the most influential nonprofit leaders in the state. There's a photo of you at some gala with the governor. That was a fundraiser for education reform, I said. The governor was the keynote speaker. You're wearing a ball gown and talking to the governor, Vanessa said, her voice hollow. And you never mentioned this? You never asked what I actually did, I pointed out. Every time I tried to talk about my work, you changed the subject or made assumptions. Mom was still processing. The building. Your apartment. You own the entire building. Yes. 48 units total. 36 are currently occupied. I've been slowly renovating the empty units. That's why the building seems half empty. I'm doing major upgrades before re-renting them at market rate. The elevator that's always breaking, Vanessa said slowly. That's being completely replaced, I finished. We're installing a modern system next month. The current one is 40 years old and beyond repair. The building has been operational with the service elevator during the upgrade process. The lobby that looks outdated, Mom added weakly, is being renovated starting next week, I confirmed. Complete redesign. Marble floors, new lighting, modernized security systems, updated mailroom. The architect's renderings are beautiful. Vanessa was still scrolling through her phone. The declining neighborhood? Emma, I'm looking at property values. That area has appreciated 18% in the last 3 years. It's one of the fastest growing neighborhoods in the city. I know, I said. That's why I bought there 6 years ago. I saw the potential before everyone else did. The new transit station, the commercial development, the young professional demographic moving in. It was obvious the area would boom. Obvious, Vanessa repeated faintly. Mom's hands were shaking. The things I said. About your building being a dump. About the management being terrible. The management works for me, I said. Thomas Green is excellent. He's implemented every upgrade I've requested, stays under budget and maintains high tenant satisfaction. The building's reputation issue you mentioned? That was deliberate. I kept it low profile during renovations to avoid driving up property taxes before the work was complete. You kept it low profile, Mom echoed. The empty units aren't because of a bad reputation, I explained. They're empty because I'm upgrading them. New appliances, modern bathrooms, refinished floors, updated electrical and plumbing. Each unit takes about 6 weeks to complete. I'm doing them in phases to maintain cash flow from occupied units while improving the property value. Vanessa set down her phone with a trembling hand. You're doing a phased renovation of a 48-unit building while managing a $200 million foundation? The renovation is mostly managed by contractors and Thomas, I said. I just make final decisions on design elements and approve budgets. The foundation takes up more of my time, grant reviews, donor meetings, program oversight, financial planning. The cute one-bedroom in Riverside for $1,800 a month, Mom said slowly, that you wanted me to move into. Would have been a significant downgrade, I confirmed. My penthouse is 2,800 square feet. 2 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, private terrace, floor-to-ceiling windows with city views. Market rent would be about $5,000 a month. Though I don't pay rent obviously since I own it. $5,000 a month, Vanessa whispered. That's actually conservative, I said. Comparable penthouses in the area are going for $5,500 to $6,000. But I prefer to keep my building's rates slightly below market to maintain good long-term tenants. Higher retention, less turnover, more stable income. Mom was still shaking her head. But you drive that old car. You dress so plainly. You never go anywhere or do anything. How could you have $18 million and live like I don't need to prove my wealth to anyone? I suggested. Mom, I drive a reliable car because I don't need a status symbol. I dress comfortably because I'm usually in meetings with nonprofit directors and grant recipients who are trying to do important work with limited resources. Showing up in designer clothes would be tone deaf. And I travel constantly for the foundation. I've been to 12 states in the last 3 months reviewing programs and meeting with partners. 12 states, Vanessa said numbly. The foundation operates across the region, I explained. We fund educational initiatives in underserved communities, scholarship programs, teacher training, infrastructure improvements for schools. I visit the programs regularly to assess impact and maintain relationships with our partners. You never mentioned any of this, Mom said. You never asked, I replied simply. Every family gathering, you and Vanessa talked about real estate deals and commissions and vacation plans. When I tried to mention foundation work, you dismissed it as charity office work and changed the subject. Vanessa was reading from her phone again. There's an article here from last year. Emma Chin, the quiet philanthropist reshaping education funding. It says you've distributed over 50 million in grants in just 5 years. 63 million as of last quarter, I corrected. We had a very successful year. The article says you personally contributed 10 million to seed the foundation's endowment. 12 million actually, I said. But who's counting? Mom's voice was barely audible. Where did you get $12 million to start a foundation? I made it, I said simply. I worked in venture capital after college. Got in early with 3 tech startups that went public. My equity positions were worth about 28 million when I cashed out. I used 12 to fund the foundation, 7.3 to buy the building and invested the rest. That portfolio has grown to about 8 million now, plus the building's appreciated value. Venture capital, Vanessa repeated. You worked in venture capital? For 6 years after college. I was good at identifying promising startups. My success rate for exits was significantly above industry average. I took another sip of my now cold latte. But I wanted to do something more meaningful than just making rich people richer. So I founded the Chin Foundation and bought the building to provide stable income while I built the nonprofit. Mom's phone was still in her hand, forgotten. You've been a multimillionaire for 6 years and you never told us? You never asked about my life, I said. You made assumptions based on how I dress and what I drive and where I live. You decided I was a failure without ever bothering to learn what I actually do. We didn't think you were a failure, Mom protested weakly. Yes, you did, I said calmly. Every family gathering you've compared me to Vanessa. Her sales numbers, her luxury condo, her BMW, her international trips. You've pitted me for my little nonprofit job and my rundown apartment. You've lectured me about ambition and success and wanting more for myself. Vanessa had tears in her eyes. Emma, I didn't mean. Yes, you did, I interrupted gently. Vanessa, you're successful. You make good money, you live well, you enjoy your work. That's wonderful. But you've spent years assuming that because I don't display wealth the way you do, I must not have any. That says more about your values than mine. The building, Mom said again as if she couldn't process anything else. You really own that entire building? Yes. Would you like to see the deed? The property management contracts? The renovation budgets? I listed your apartment for rent, Mom whispered. I scheduled showings. I hired a moving company. I know, I said. Thomas called me while you were explaining why I needed to move to Riverside. Why didn't you stop me? I was curious how far you'd go, I admitted. Breaking into my home, photographing my belongings, listing my property without permission. I wanted to see what you'd do when you thought you were helping someone you perceived as unsuccessful. Vanessa was still scrolling through articles. There's a photo here of you accepting an award from the State Education Board. For outstanding philanthropic leadership. That was last month. Yes. The Foundation's scholarship program helped 200 students attend college last year. The board recognized that work. 200 students, Vanessa murmured. Full scholarships, I clarified. Tuition, books, housing, living expenses for 4 years. We track their progress, provide mentoring, offer internship connections. 87% graduate within 5 years, compared to the national average of 60% for first-generation college students. Mom was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. I called your building a dump. I said the owner didn't care. The owner cares very much, I said. She's investing over $2 million in renovations to provide quality housing at reasonable rates while improving property values for the entire neighborhood. She's creating a model for responsible urban development. Mom repeated. You're talking about yourself in third person. Sometimes it's easier, I said. Helps maintain perspective. The building isn't about me. It's about providing good homes for 48 families while generating stable income to support the foundation's work. Vanessa looked up from her phone. You're on the board of 3 other major foundations. You're an advisor to the State Commissioner of Education. You've been invited to speak at Harvard Business School about impact investing. I declined the Harvard invitation, I said. Too busy with actual work. Too busy, Vanessa said. Emma, you're running a multi-million-dollar foundation managing a 48-unit building renovation serving on multiple boards, advising state officials, and you never once mentioned any of it. You never asked what I actually did with my time, I pointed out. You assumed working at a nonprofit meant filing papers and organizing bake sales. Mom wiped her eyes. What do we do now? How do we fix this? Fix what? I asked. You didn't break anything. You made assumptions based on incomplete information, which is human nature. Now you have more complete information. But we were awful to you, Mom said. Years of condescension and pity and lectures about ambition. You were honest about what you valued, I said. Wealth displays, status symbols, conventional success markers. Those things matter to you. They don't matter to me. That's not a problem to fix. It's just a difference to acknowledge. Vanessa set down her phone. I sold a $2.8 million house this month and thought I was hot stuff. You own an $11 million building and never mentioned it. Because the building isn't the achievement, I said. The achievement is the $63 million in educational grants, the 200 college scholarships, the 15 schools that have new computer labs because of our funding, the teacher training programs that have reached over 1,000 educators. The building just funds that work. Just funds, Mom repeated. Emma, you're talking about millions of dollars like it's nothing. It's not nothing, I corrected. It's a tool. Money is a tool for accomplishing things that matter. You and Vanessa use your money for nice cars and vacation homes and international travel. That's fine. Those things make you happy. I use my money to help kids go to college who otherwise couldn't. That makes me happy. Different tools, different goals. The waiter approached hesitantly. Can I get anyone anything else? The check, please, I said. When he returned with it, I pulled out my card before Mom could react. Emma, you don't have to, Mom started. I know, I said. But brunch is on me today. Consider it a thank you for the entertainment. Entertainment? Vanessa said weakly. Watching you both process this information has been enlightening, I admitted. Your faces when Thomas called, when you started finding articles, when the numbers started making sense. Very entertaining. Mom was shaking her head. How can you joke about this? Because it's not a tragedy, Mom. It's just information you didn't have before. You thought I was unsuccessful and felt sorry for me. Now you know I'm successful and feel, what? Ashamed? Confused? Impressed? All of those, Mom admitted. Don't be ashamed, I said. You loved me when you thought I was poor. That's actually more valuable than loving me now that you know I'm not. We didn't just love you, Vanessa said quietly. We pitied you. We judged you. We tried to fix you when you weren't broken. True, I agreed. But now you know better. So moving forward, maybe ask questions instead of making assumptions. Maybe consider that success doesn't always look like luxury cars and designer handbags. Maybe remember that some people prefer quiet impact over visible wealth. The waiter returned with my card. I signed the receipt, adding a generous tip. The server had been excellent despite the emotional chaos at our table. Mom watched me sign. What happens now? With our relationship. Same as always, I said. We have brunch, we talk, we maintain a relationship. The only difference is you have more context for my life choices. But I listed your apartment, Mom said. I broke into your home and tried to rent it out from under you. You used your spare key to photograph a property you thought I was renting, planning to help me move somewhere you thought was better, I corrected. Your methods were questionable, but your intentions were good. You wanted to help someone you thought was struggling. You weren't struggling. No, I agreed. But you thought I was and you tried to help. That's actually sweet in a deeply misguided, boundary-violating way. Vanessa let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. You're being way too nice about this. What's the alternative? I asked. Hold a grudge? Cut you off? Make you feel terrible? What would that accomplish? You made mistakes based on incomplete information. Now you have complete information. Learn from it and move forward. Mom reached across the table and took my hand. I'm proud of you, Emma. So incredibly proud. The foundation, the scholarships, the work you're doing. It's remarkable. Thank you, I said. But I'm also ashamed that I didn't know, Mom continued. That I never asked, never looked deeper, never bothered to learn what you were actually accomplishing. I was so focused on comparing you to Vanessa that I missed everything important about your life. Vanessa's accomplishments are important too, I said. She helps families find homes, navigates complex transactions, provides expertise people need. That matters. We just have different definitions of success. Vanessa was crying openly now. I called your building a dump. I said the owner was irresponsible. Emma, you're the owner and you're investing millions in renovations. I'm supposedly a real estate expert and I completely missed what you were doing. You missed it because I wanted you to miss it, I said gently. I kept the renovations low profile deliberately. No marketing, no press, no announcements. Just quiet, steady improvement. That was strategic, not accidental. Strategic, Vanessa repeated. Emma, you're playing chess while I'm playing checkers. Different games require different strategies, I said. You're excellent at your game. High-volume residential sales, luxury market focus, personality-driven client relationships. I'm playing a different game. Long-term property value appreciation, community development, income generation for philanthropic work. Neither game is better than the other. Mom squeezed my hand. Can we start over? Can I learn about your actual work, your real life, the things you're actually doing? Of course, I said. Though I should warn you, foundation work isn't glamorous. It's a lot of grant reviews, budget meetings, site visits to underfunded schools, conversations with educators about resource needs. Not as exciting as luxury real estate sales. It's more important than luxury real estate sales, Vanessa said quietly. Not more important, I corrected. Just different. People need homes, Vanessa. The families you help find houses are building lives, raising children, creating stability. That's important work. I'm just doing different important work. We left the restaurant together, stepping out into the afternoon sunshine. Mom's car was parked near Vanessa's BMW. My 10-year-old Honda was around the corner. You really could buy any car you wanted, Vanessa said, looking at her BMW. I could, I agreed. But this one runs perfectly, gets good gas mileage and doesn't scream, wealthy nonprofit director, when I park it at underfunded schools. Sometimes the best tool is the one that doesn't draw attention to itself. Mom hugged me tightly. I'm sorry, sweetheart. For everything. For the assumptions, the condescension, the pity. For listing your apartment without permission. For breaking into your home. For not seeing you clearly. You see me now, I said. That's what matters. Vanessa hugged me next. I have so many questions. About the foundation, about the building, about how you identified those startups, about your investment strategy, about everything. Coffee next week? I suggested. I'll walk you through the foundation structure and the building renovation plans. Might be useful for your real estate knowledge. I'd like that, Vanessa said. As they drove away in their luxury vehicles, I walked to my old Honda and climbed in. My phone buzzed. Thomas Green, the property manager. Miss Chin, just wanted to confirm. That situation with your mother is resolved? Completely resolved, I said. She now understands the ownership structure. Excellent. Should I proceed with scheduling the lobby renovation kickoff? Yes. Let's start next Monday if the contractors are ready. They are. Miss Chin, if you don't mind me saying, the way you handled that call with your mother was masterful. Very professional. Thank you, Thomas. It's been an educational morning all around. I drove home to my building. My building with 48 units, ongoing renovations and long-term tenants who had no idea their quiet landlord was the woman who lived in the penthouse. The elevator was still broken, being replaced next month, so I took the service elevator up to my floor. The hallway was quiet, recently repainted in warm neutrals that made the space feel more expensive without being ostentatious. My penthouse was exactly as Mom had photographed it. Comfortable furniture, well-used kitchen, city views through floor-to-ceiling windows, and a second bedroom converted into an office where I managed foundation work and building operations. I made fresh coffee and opened my laptop. 47 emails since this morning, grant applications to review, renovation bids to approve, meeting requests from education officials, budget reports from the foundation's finance team. This was my real life. Not luxury cars or international vacations or designer clothes, but meaningful work that created lasting impact. Scholarships that changed lives. Building improvements that provided quality housing. Programs that helped teachers and students succeed. Mom and Vanessa would process today's revelations in their own way. Maybe they'd learn to ask questions before making assumptions. Maybe they'd develop more complex definitions of success. Maybe they'd simply be more careful about what they said around me. Or maybe nothing would change except that they'd stop pitying me for my little office job and my rundown apartment. Either way, I had work to do. 200 million in foundation assets didn't manage themselves, and 48 apartments weren't going to renovate themselves. Success wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It was about doing work that mattered, creating impact that lasted, and measuring achievement by lives changed rather than possessions acquired. Mom had listed my apartment thinking she was helping someone who needed rescuing. What she discovered instead was that some people don't need rescuing. They need to be seen clearly, asked genuine questions, and trusted to know what success looks like for themselves. I sipped my coffee and returned to my grant reviews, content in the knowledge that $18 million and $63 million in educational funding meant more to me than any luxury car or vacation home ever would. And if Mom tried to list my apartment again, at least now she'd know she was listing property owned by a woman who'd built something meaningful with quiet determination and strategic vision. Sometimes the most powerful success stories are the ones told in whispers rather than shouts. Mine just happened to echo in 48 apartments and 200 college scholarships.